All right, welcome everyone. This is a city council meeting for South Weaver City, Tuesday, August 18th at 6:01. We'll first start off with the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilwoman Petty and a prayer by myself.
Please stand and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My dear Heavenly Father, as we come before you this evening, we're so very thankful for all the many blessings and for the opportunity we have to be here as citizens and neighbors and of our fine community. We pray that Thy Spirit will be with us, that we might be able to make wise decisions on our city's behalf. And we're thankful again for our first responders, our fire department, our police, and those who are working on the coronavirus. Watch over them and protect them, that they will all be able to return home to their families in safety. Again, we thank Thee for all we have, and we're thankful for this wonderful land we live, and we say these things in the Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. All right, we'd like to excuse the mayor. She's on family vacation, so don't hit me too much or cause too many problems. We'll make this a quick meeting. It'll be a record pace. First off, we have an update on the coronavirus. The goal by Governor Herbert and the state was to be below 400 cases a day by September 1st. Currently, the state is down below on an average of 354 per day, and yesterday we were at 256 per day. So, well, that was yesterday's count. Our hospital rate is at 4.3%, which is very good. 8.3% positive test rate, which has come down a little bit. Numbers are similar to last week's, and cases go down in the county. Currently in South Weaver, we have 8 cases. That's up slightly with 34. That's active cases with 34 total cases. Anybody have anything else on that update? Okay. Next, we'll move into our public comment. Do I have a motion to go into public comment? Or do we need a motion for that? No motion for that. Paul? I'll try not to touch anything.
Paul Stern, 2527 Deer Run Drive. My comments tonight have to do with the Planning Commission meeting that was held last Thursday. If you did not have the opportunity to watch it, I would highly recommend that you watch that meeting. There were a couple different places in there where there were areas of concern, especially when they had the general plan discussion. It became somewhat, what I consider somewhat disjointed and confusing, because they readdressed a lot of things that had been cited at their last Planning Commission meeting on the general plan, on various portions of the plan itself. For your reference, the general plan discussion started at 1 hour and 20 minutes into the Planning Commission meeting, so it gives you a reference point. The first discussion was on the View Drive connection. Planning Commission overall was confused. They had already thought it was decided in the prior meeting because the residents of View Drive onto 7800 had signed a petition, and everybody was in agreement and saying it's not a good thing to do at this time. Well, it got brought up again. The second one at 1 hour and 23 minutes in, that lasted for another 11 minutes, was a discussion on the 1900 East Road to Layton. That had, once again, had generally been put to bed as far as the Planning Commission was concerned. And if you watched the meeting, which you were there watching it, turns out that there were several of the planning commissioners that said, thought we already discussed this. This is what we already had done. And once again, there was an air of confusion on what was happening. Planning Commission chair pushed again after it already been decided on how to describe what to add to the general plan that had basically not been discussed in the prior meeting. It's just all of a sudden it came out of nowhere. Barry then had a comment on it and said, we already discussed this. He's confused. This is not what we agreed upon. And the comment at that point, well, I can bring up something if I want to. I'm paraphrasing. That's not exactly his comment. And he said, there's a need to rewrite and readdress the 1900 East Road to Layton as it is presented in the general plan. He wants to add some text to the general plan to address, if a potential in the future, 5 years down the road or something like that, this is what was discussed. But a lot, I would say most of the planning commission said, if you're going to do that, then we need to put facts into it. Really, you need to listen to the audio discussion on that to get a better full picture of what happened. I would like to congratulate Wes for his staunch support of the citizens during that meeting, because he said, this is what the citizens decided. This is what the citizens decided. He said it several times during the meeting, and opinion was blown off. The bottom line of that discussion on the road to Layton, 1900 East Road to Layton, is that Rob was going to send the text that he had read from to Barry for inclusion in the Planning Commission's response back to the City Council. The next discussion was on mixed use. Once again, a lot of confusion on that, until finally they brought it back around that the only mixed use that we're really talking about now on the 2.91 acres is on the Lost project, which is a one-shot deal. The next had to do with noise. Wes brought that topic up. Does not think it's adequately addressed within the general plan. There is a question on the decibel range that is being used in the general plan right now. It is typically 75 plus requires remediation, where in fact, multiple, and Wes brought this up with some of his research on it. Wes brought up the fact that in actuality, it drops down to the 65 to 74 decibel range, or LDN, sort of equivalent. And I've done further research on it to find out that, by the way, a lot of the bases have had their noise studies done. And if you're above that, and if you're in that 64 to 75, 65 to 74 range, there is a chance that you cannot get federal home loans for that property. That has a major impact on that city. And it needs to be addressed. If not, or else they have to have remediation, such as additional sound deadening and everything else. That has to be brought into our, I would say, in our city codes. If you've got a building code that if you're within this particular zone, you have to have this type of sound dampening, whatever. And end of story, whatever the case is, what the Planning Commission does submit to you, it is the City Council's responsibility, and they have the final say on what is contained in the general plan. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Derek? Do we have any online public comment? No, we don't. All right. Any comments from the council?
I have one
Okay.
comment. I just want to clarify, Paul, when you were saying about the decibel levels, you were referring specifically to that mixed use parcel you were talking about,
No.
or just in general?
So,
Okay,
well, so the noise that Paul's referring to, and I was gonna get into that in our PC, my PC recap, is the noise in the sensitive lands paragraph, and referring to Hill Air Force Base and our sensitive lands maps. We start our decibel ratings where it's 75 currently.
okay,
And if you go off of, if we go 65, we will be 100% pink. And so there's some discrepancy on what level to start at. And I agree with how it's currently at 75. So.
That's fine.
No, I'm just saying, that's my personal opinion. So,
I have heard a lot of documentation.
but any other comments?
no, sir, thank you.
All right, then, we'll move into our next item, and a discussion item for the fire department rehabilitation equipment discussion. And I believe we have someone here to discuss that and talk about that. Well, while you're doing that, I'll read the background on it. And it says, after September 11th, 2001, the Department of Homeland Security, in conjunction with FEMA, came up with a way to provide better resources to communities in the event that a disaster of any kind occurs. South Weaver was given the responsibility to provide rehab and hazmat decontamination. A trailer and a Ford Excursion, along with some basic equipment, was provided. It has been over 15 years since any of this was updated. Because this region is a Region 1 asset, Region 1 can potentially pay for the entire replacement or outfitting of both a new truck and trailer, as well as the associated equipment. This does require some financial wrangling to get the equipment purchased and the money reimbursed. Region 1 president will be in attendance, and I believe that's Chief Paul Erickson, correct?
The co-chair.
Co-chair, okay, from Kaysville. So come on up and.
Well, thank you very much. Paul Erickson, Fire Chief of Kaysville. I am the co-chair for the Homeland Security Grant. I do the grant period, then we have an administrative side. So yeah, everything you're saying is correct. I just sent Derek, our Chief Tolman, a maintenance letter from back in 2013 that you can use it for maintenance and upkeep. Region 1, before my time, I've been doing this for 2.5 years. Before my time, Region 1 came up with a plan that said, no, once we buy the trailers, we're not doing it. After talking to Tanner Patterson at the state, who runs the program at the state, who is my contact, we can use maintenance for it. However, there still is the supplanting. You can't do it. I mean, it's rules on anything, whether you get a home loan and there's rules or whatever. But on the Homeland Security Grant in general, supplanting is that problem. So somehow you have to think about what you're going to do, how much it's going to cost, and then take from Peter, pay Paul, and then pay Peter back. So, that's just the rules. You cannot budget for this. However, we can put in for a project. I also do the applications for the Homeland Security Grant. You could do a project. 2020 application was due in April. I did it. Received no input from other counties. So that means I get to make whatever I want up. That's really what it boils down to. So whoever comes to me with the needs, and they're usually chiefs in Davis County that say, hey, can we do this or we do this? We wrote a generic one that was due in April, and the final one is due to FEMA the end of September. So we can build a project, but you wouldn't be able to mess with it until 2020. And it would be specifically for that. They built a project several years ago for South Davis Metro. They ended up getting a hazmat unit, and $83,000 later, there they go. But it had to come out of their pocket first, and they got the money reimbursed. Does that make sense?
I do.
I mean, I know it hurts sometimes, but I asked Chief Tolman if he could, if it doesn't need to be replaced, if we can save some money, and maybe the trailer just needs to be overhauled, or maybe the truck needs to be overhauled. I don't know the status of them. I know they came out to our fire that we had on Friday. It looks great, but we always keep our stuff up and we hear that from the public. Wow, man, this looks great. Yeah, but it's 4 years. We need to do something about it. But we can put that project in. What I also suggested, and this is probably good as well, about April of next year, I'll get a call, and Tanner and I deal with each other probably weekly, but I'll get an email from him and he'll say, hey, Paul, we have, like he did this year, we have $188,000 we're going to turn in. And then I'll send it out to the emergency managers, and then they let me know if they can get something in quick, because you got to turn it. 30 June, we're supposed to turn it in. He gives me a little leeway. We usually have till the end of July. He gives up the money to the state. Task Force 1 got most of it this year. And then they have it until X amount of time. And then I'm waiting for some turn in, but I got a $44,000 bill in the queue right now to try and use 17 money. But if we could have got to it sooner, and we would have known some things. So I suggest that first on the 2018 money. Because we turn, ever since I've been there and even looking at prior notes and stuff, we've turned in over $100,000 the past 10 years. I mean, it's real money.
So what's the turnaround time? If we put the money up front, let's say we spend it in September, which is not likely, but let's say we do spend it in September, when do we get it back, reimbursement?
Yeah, I'm being recorded.
You are being recorded.
The point to that is it depends on what time of year. When he's closing up books, Tanner, the state, when he's closing stuff up, it can be 2 weeks tops. But I've turned stuff in 3 days because somebody got the check to the vendor, had him deposit that check, they got the check cleared, because that's what I need. I need a cover letter, and Chief told me we'll get that. I need a cover letter saying that you looked at the rules and the regulations and you spent X amount of dollars. I need an invoice, I need the paid invoice, and the cleared check. That's what I need.
So
It doesn't matter how many.
same fiscal year is my question. It'd be in the
It'd be in
same fiscal
a
year?
year's time.
Okay,
I put it this way, 2.5 years, I've never seen a check over 10 days.
okay.
I've never seen nobody get not reimbursed in 10 days.
Okay.
And that's because he's doing closeout.
Thank you.
Do you have anything to add?
I'll just give a quick background. So how this all came about was we started putting together the vehicle replacement programs, and part of that was the rehab trailer and the rehab vehicle. And I got thinking, if this is a region asset, there's no reason South Weaver citizens should have to foot the bill for all of that. And so I started asking the appropriate people of, hey, what are our avenues to get some of this funded? And Chief Erickson's been great at walking me through that process. So that way we can have it funded by the region, but it's still South Weaver, says South Weaver Fire on the side. And it's our asset as far as being in the city, but paid for with region money. So that kind of give you a background of how we got to here. Do you have any questions on that?
I do. Sorry to monopolize, but how much do we anticipate this would be for, so we'd be replacing the excursion and the trailer,
So I'll put
best case?
right. So I'll put together like 2 or 3 different options as far as do we want to keep the equipment we have and just upgrade it and update it, or do we want to just look at completely replacing the squad and replacing the trailer? And so I'll come up with 3 or 4 different options and see kind of what the council's comfortable with, what the region's comfortable with, and what seems most appropriate.
Is there a preferred approach from the region's point of view?
From our point of view, like I said, I would wait to end of year money and see what's out there. So that means, upgrading things. But if you do a new one, you're going to end up putting it in the 2020 project, and that's not guaranteed either, because that's when the 6 emergency managers will get together in the region and they can block it.
Okay.
They can say it's not. We were very fortunate here, to be honest with you, because I educate our chiefs after I got educated. But yeah, I deal with emergency managers. That's it. I don't deal with Box Elder fire chiefs or Cache County fire chiefs. I don't deal with any of them. Some of them call me and ask me questions, but for the most part, our chiefs are pretty in tune, and that's why we can get a lot of money, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And is the end of the year the end of the calendar year, or do they have a different fiscal year?
For us, like I said, 30 June it's not really a fiscal, it's when that grant is over, and it's 3-year money. And what I mean by that is we just closed out 2017 grant. So now we're spending 2018 money. And then in 21, 30 June of 21, 18 goes away. And
Okay.
so on.
It's a 3-year
Yeah.
cycle.
3 year
It keeps going.
Yeah, so I guess to help better answer that question, we don't want to be the greedy pig at the trough. So I mean, obviously replacing everything with brand new stuff would be awesome. So if we come up with several different options and figure out what the region's comfortable with and what we're comfortable with and what we feel works well for everybody, I think to give you an estimate right now would be unfair. I did run the numbers on brand new stuff, and a brand new truck, brand new trailer, and all the equipment involved, it's going to be north of $100,000. So I don't know if that's really what the region's looking for, what we're looking for. So that's why we have to kind of figure out that middle ground.
Do you take into account selling off, what you have currently to buy
So
that, or do they just pay you whatever?
correct me if I'm wrong. So yeah, we could, if we replace it, we can sell the squad and the trailer and the equipment through our regular auction or.
Yeah, you can, but you get peanuts on the call.
Right. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to sell, they're treated as South Weaver assets, even though the region paid for them. So,
Let me explain one more thing, because I think it's fair to do. So there's five projects in these grants up through 19. I split the projects up. In 20, there's 9 projects. You can't cross streams on some of the projects. For instance, project 1 is LNTPA, which is cops, Ogden City cops own that one. It's their real-time crime center, which is expensive. And you can't use that for this type of money. That's the bad thing. But projects 2, which is hazmat, project 3, which is USAR, project 4, which is community involvement, and project 5 is exercise and planning. You can't cross streams. You can't move money project to project, as long as you don't transfer more than 20% of the overall grant, which last year was $486,000. So 20% of that, you got 116 grand. There's not 116 grand in one project usually. So there's a good chance that you can get it, because we just have to label it right. So I just want to be clear on that.
One more question on that. So if we apply for the grant on September 1st,
You
how long is the period?
He's already,
Yeah,
they've already got.
you don't apply
Okay.
yet.
But to your board, I just want to know a time frame. That's all I'm asking. Like if we petition you to say we want this,
Just don't go, oh, I see what
you
you're
see what I'm
saying.
saying?
So in other words, the region's
Yes.
board, whether they approve it or not, we are actually, I got pinged today because of all this going on. I got pinged today. We have a meeting on September 9th to discuss about projects moving forward and to discuss 18, 19, and 20 money.
Okay, thank you.
So I can update Chief on.
Do we have anybody who has ideas of how we want to approach that? Do we want Chief to give us anything in particular? Do we want to come back with all those ideas and give them to the Public Safety Committee and they come back with ideas to the council to speed it up, or just bring all 3 ideas or 4 ideas or whatever he comes up with back to the council?
How much time do you think it'll take for you to put together the options?
I could probably have it done in a month. And that would be hard numbers. I mean, I could give us ballpark numbers in a week and a half, but to get us the actual quote from the state contractor or whatever and get the actual dollar amounts for each option would probably take me about a month.
I would just bring it straight to council and speed up the process.
I think the opportunity there to get the money and update our equipment, I think, like I said, with 3 or 4 different options, we can decide what we're comfortable with. And ultimately, though, it's up to region approval. So maybe we take them option 3 and they're like, nah, that's too much. And so we take them option 2 after that. So
Would your plan be to take it to the region first before you bring it to us, so that we know what they're going to accept?
whatever you're most comfortable with.
I think that would be beneficial to kind of, we don't want
Rather
to,
than us
At least to have
go
that
back and
discussion
forth,
with them.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I can take them. I mean, let's be frank, I'm going to take them probably the most expensive option first. And if they tell me no, then we bump down an option, right?
That greedy pig.
So-
Well, we said, I kind of disagree. When you turn in 100
Yeah.
Right.
Chief, do you mind just talking to the current condition of those vehicles? What's going on with them?
Yeah, the Squad is a 2004 Ford Excursion. It doesn't have terribly high miles. I believe the miles are less than 70,000 miles. The inside's pretty rough and torn up from pulling coolers in and out of the back. And I mean, it'd be nice to put like a slider in the back. So instead of dragging the coolers and tearing up the carpet every time, and it's also, hard on your backs, pulling those heavy coolers in and out of the back. And then a lot of the equipment in the trailer needs to be replaced from, 15 years of getting abused by firefighters. And we just had a light get broke this last on your fire in Kaysville. One of the guys dropped like an $800 light and broke it. And it's like, firefighters. But, so a lot of it is the equipment and creating the trailer so it's better set up than what it currently is set up. And
So this grant covers the equipment within the trailer as well?
Right, correct. So I put together the project, submit the project to the region, and the region says, yeah, looks great, or no, let's do some revisions, right? So, and part of that is hazmat too. I mean, we always focus on rehab because rehab is truly what it gets utilized for the most. But part of this responsibility is providing hazmat decon for the county or for the region as well. And that's not utilized all that often. But when he mentioned part of that is hazmat money, that's part of what would be covered under this as well, is getting our hazmat portion and our hazmat responsibilities up to date. Because when all this was put together, we did wet decon, and now everyone does dry decon, and we don't have any of the equipment or anything set up to do dry decon. And so part of it would be updating all that as well. So
I think that's the way to approach it then.
okay.
I think it's a great idea. I appreciate
Yep.
you presenting this to the council.
Thank you.
And thanks for your time. We appreciate you coming in. That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Now that we're not going to break records, we'll move to action item number 6, approval of the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes from July 28, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I have just a quick question on that. Where we, I think it's Lane that consensus minutes. There were some changes made to it, and he mentioned that after we made the motion, but it's not written in there. Will that include the amended minutes?
Did you get a request for,
There was a couple
Revision
changes
to
to the minutes last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's for the 28th.
Those amendments were made, and it was signed, and we posted.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Do I have a motion?
Can I call you Mayor?
No, you may not.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda for the minutes of July 28th, 2020.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, item 7, resolution 2023, which is the inter-county automatic aid fire agreements. I'll give you the quick background on that. Over the last several years, there have been several large incidents a year in Weaver and Davis counties. These incidents have required resources from multiple counties to bring under control. In order to better streamline and manage an appropriate response, the fire chief in both counties agreed there needs to be an actual agreement in place. Davis and Weaver County are geographically the best situated to be able to help each other in a timely fashion. South Weaver has agreements with multiple Weaver County fire departments individually. This agreement will not replace those. It merely serves to cover all the cities in both counties. This will not give an increase, should not give an increase in call volume. It merely serves to improve response times and provide legally support on these large incidents. Any questions on that or any comments from the Chief. Do I have a motion to pass resolution 2020-33?
Well, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2020-33 intercounty automatic aid fire agreement.
I'll second.
Do I need a roll call vote on that? A roll call vote starting with Councilman Windsor. Aye.
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 I, that's keeping us out.
I think I get to vote, correct?
You still vote.
I still get to
You're still
vote.
on that side.
You're out of order, Blair.
Yeah, I know. All right, motion passes. Item 8, new business. Is there any new business?
I have something.
Okay.
But I kind of just wanted to get some feedback from the council regarding the contamination from Hill Air Force Base where we have our Harvest Park Phase 3 coming up. Do we have in code or otherwise anything about contamination or people who choose to build in contamination sites? Are they aware that they're in contaminated sites? Is that on the developer? Is that on the city? Can somebody help fill me in there? Or do we need to do something like that?
Code does have a sensitive land section.
So
That includes the contamination?
Well, it includes, I don't,
anything in the, so as we went through that in our little ad hoc committee a while ago, everything inside the sensitive lands, depending on where it's at, the city can require additional testing or anything within the sensitive lands, whether that's in the, it has to either be in, if it's for the contamination, it has to be in one of the OU plumes.
Okay, so I guess that would be the one that would be argued.
That's
Where are the plumes and who's deciding the plumes? And so how do we navigate this?
well, the way that we've navigated so far is that when we have a developer that approaches the city with a proposal and it falls within our sensitive lands map, then we can require the developer to do additional things to prove that that development is safe and can move forward. And so specific to contamination in the OUs, we're not the experts on where those plumes are. And so that's why we go to Hill Air Force Base for that information. And they're the ones that update those plume maps.
Have we ever had to do, we've never done anything within the OU then, so we've never done this kind of testing before, is that correct?
What kind of testing do you
For
mean?
contamination, because we haven't built within the plume, right? Am I understanding that correct?
That is what we were one time trying to determine is what is that testing? And we had, so to my knowledge, I don't believe we've had any of that testing done. But when we had another proposal up on the hill,
This is by no means my area of expertise, but I do know that they have the monitoring wells throughout the city.
Yeah.
And they come and test those frequently.
they do, and that's how they're developing their plume maps. And so-
Yeah.
But the actually requiring a developer to perform that test, we didn't even know what contaminants to require them to test. for.
Yeah,
And so that was one of the big discussion items of where people, when the development was going down here that was going to be in OU2.
Mhm.
And we were trying to come up with those tests, and we were requiring them, if they were going to continue to build in that, they were going to have to do those tests. But that can be determined no matter where the site is. And when it comes to Harvest Park, I don't know how we would say that they fall within that contamination area. I don't know how we would do that.
do we have monitoring wells over there already?
You have monitoring wells on the way down to there, and all of those wells showed zero contamination. It stops at OU2, according to their test well, stops above South Weaver Drive.
Okay, so in the event that they are within a positive testing site, do we have something in our code that requires testing, but is that testing forwarded onto the residents that will be building into those homes and moving in there? Or does it stop with the developer?
But they wouldn't be able to develop if it's
If it's
contaminated.
contaminated, they'd have to come up with either a mitigation system or something to mitigate it. Or it's recorded on title
Okay,
when they're in that sensitive area. If it's actually, I can't remember, we have two developments with it actually recorded on title that they're in that area.
okay,
Whether how the residents interpret that, I don't know, but it is on their title.
Okay.
At least that's what I've seen it lately required.
Yeah, it's more of a development process than a home building process.
I just want to make sure that the residents are aware of it in the case that they're in an area. Make sure that we have the proper course on our side, that they are aware that they're in this area.
Sure.
Just want to make sure that that process is in place.
Any more on that? Any other new business?
I have a question. It's been reported that one of the gravel pits is filling up with water. And I was kind of curious which pit and why is it filling up with water?
I heard today that it was the north pit on the Geneva side, so that northeastern pit. I'm planning on reaching out to them, but I've been in meetings all day, so I don't.
It was reported to me by one of the water masters that they are actually pumping the water from the river into the pit to settle the dust and to settle the debris. The comments I've got is, where do they get the water? They don't have rights to the water, because that is a lot of water. And I know we've already had complaints downstream that there's not enough water, and they're pumping a serious amount of water. So that would be one. If you are going to make that contact,
Okay.
That's been one question to me.
I will jump in and add, when I was on the gravel pit committee, that north pit is where they keep all of the fine dust. So
Yeah,
that's why they would particularly want that one wet,
wet,
keep it down.
but it's really full. I was surprised. That's a good question.
Maybe they're turning it into a lake.
Well, I was going to say,
Thank
there
you,
might be,
Rover.
we'll see if it holds water. How about that?
Yeah. Everybody take note. I'm not holding out on I'm holding on to my dream of those being a
We
lake
can
one day.
have beachfront properties.
Heck yeah.
Man, the slums of Cornelia Drive, no more. Oh.
All
Are
right.
there additional concerns other than water rights?
And
Staff-
Safety.
there's just been,
Staff has talked about some concerns that we.
yeah, I mean, in the past, there's been concerns of the material sloughing off as the water fills up and coming towards the road, but that's a UDOT issue.
Sure.
So.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on new business? And we'll move into reports. I'm normally not first, so. Planning Commission was held on Thursday, and they approved the phase 3 of Harvest Park to come, I believe, and be presented to City Council, or is that stopped there?
No,
It's
it's a
coming.
final, so it will come before City
Okay.
Council.
Yeah, final recommendation, so it should come to us fairly soon.
It's scheduled to come next week.
Yeah. There was a public hearing and action on a short-term rental use for Snow Basin Destination, operated by Lori Drake on 8100 South. They did put together a conditional use. One I thought was interesting, and I think it went very well, that they came up, one of the conditions was owner occupied. And I think that's one of the things I would like to see us discuss with our new council, whether we amend our ordinance to cover owner occupied. I know we went round and round and struggled with that when we created the ordinance. There was some very positive feedback about owner occupied versus non-owner occupied short-term rentals. And she was limited to a number of 6, and she had plenty of off-street parking, and there were a few other minor things. At 4 off-street parking, 6 tenants, and then to work out with the neighbor the boundary line so that the tenants are not infringing on their property. I think that was it on the short-term rental. Obviously, we heard there was discussion on the general plan, and they did not vote to pass the general plan on to City Council. And it sounds like that will come up, I believe, in their September 18th. Is that their next
Yeah,
plan?
that's my understanding, is that it should be an action item in their next meeting,
Yes.
next regular meeting in September.
And Paul was correct in earlier public comment that there will be a paragraph added regarding the description of the access road. It won't be under the 1900 East title. It'll be as access to our water tank, and a description of that road and what the city owns and what's in there. And so that will be added. There was a discrepancy on the written language of View Drive, that it came off of the map, but it did not come out in the verbiage in the narrative. So that is getting edited as well. And we've already discussed the noise. So I believe that was most of the changes. So I think most of us have listened to Planning Commission, but any questions on any of that?
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about them?
Do you really want me to?
Sure.
Yes.
As long as we don't go past
So
7.
that paragraph, in my opinion, humbly, is a political ploy for future planning commissions or city councils. It basically saying if it looks like a road, it acts like a road, it must be a road, therefore put a blacktop on it. That's all that statement's really doing. So if we have a council want to approve that general plan with said statement, and I disagree with some of the findings, it doesn't have all the utilities in it. It has storm drain and water. And that's not all. But if we're going to do that, then the second paragraph needs to be added that says, despite all these appearances, ... And we put in all the reasons why it's not a road, why it doesn't have asphalt on it, so that future generations, future councils, future planning commissions don't fall victim to why that statement is put in there. That's my political statement.
And I think that was actually brought up by a couple of them, that if we're going to put it there, they ought to say why we didn't choose to put it at, it's not a road.
But it wasn't accepted.
Well, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what comes back.
Yeah,
They
well,
haven't voted, and I don't think I think they need to vote first.
yeah.
I just have a question on the 7800 South. I was kind of confused. So it was not connected as a collector on the
So-
map, but it was in the narrative. But they've actually asked to it was still connecting, just not as a collector.
So it wasn't, so I think it was shown, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I could be completely wrong, I'm wrong. So originally it had an orange line on it to
Mhm.
show it as a collector.
But they don't want it to connect.
They don't want it
period.
as a collector. I think I think they had the discussion because the citizens did it correctly and did put a petition out there that it was supposed to just stop.
Mhm.
But the way I saw it on the map is it's still on there as a small minor road.
Yeah.
And
So
so that was a question going back, but the verbiage in the general plan actually had it still on there as a collector. So that verbiage they wanted changed.
but I think the
but I
map
don't
needs
know-
to be updated
I
too.
didn't,
Am
I
I
didn't
right?
catch exactly if the map had to be updated or not, because it was towards the end, Gary came back up and said, you're correct,
Right.
Rob, that needs to stop right there.
Yeah, and that's their
And
petition
so-
wasn't just to take it as a collector. It
Yeah.
was to stop the road, to take it off.
And so I was kind of waiting to see what Barry came back with. I don't know if you want to double check that, Dave.
Yeah, I can double
So,
check that
And again,
that happens the right way to have.
we do
remove
have a
complaints.
chance to make any modifications, so I wasn't too worried about it, so. But I think the citizens deserve it, because I think they did it the proper way.
And it's just,
Yeah.
it's not wide enough regardless.
I agree.
Right.
That'd be a weird road.
But can I
Road.
I just have to say this, if the citizens did it the right way on that road, then they did it the right way on the other road as well.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
we need to take that into consideration.
That's why it's not on
There you go.
there, or I put it on there. All right. Haley.
Okay, I just have a couple from our PR meeting I forgot to talk about last week. So we met, we discussed our website, and it's something that we worked with again today. We got a couple of RFPs back, but we decided that we needed to kind of get some more information from our current provider, who we previously hadn't been hearing from, but Dave was able to make contact with her today, so that's great news. So that will give us some further information. Do you want to add anything to that, Dave?
No, just that the PR committee looked at the two proposals that we had and feel like we can do better than that. And so we're gonna keep working.
Yeah, so we're gonna probably put another RFP together and send it back out again. And then we did talk about putting in a company called Archive Social, which archives all of our social media accounts and keeps it correct for the public record. And then also public notices. Dave, do you want to, I wrote down public notices, we talked about it, but do you want to talk about what staff has done with public notices and what we talked about there?
Yeah, you bet. So there are state requirements on public notices, then there are things that we've done as a city above and beyond that in order to try to be as communicative as possible. There are things that we're adding as staff as far as that's concerned. Whenever there is a public hearing, then a public notice goes out. If people want to be aware of public notices, the quickest and best way to receive every public notice is to sign up on the state website for the public notices, because we post them on the state public notice website, and those immediately get notified out to anybody that's signed up and registered. So that's the best way. But whenever there is an activity or an agenda item that is going to be on property, then the plan is to put out a sandwich board as well that says public notice. So not only for public hearings, which is a specific and required activity before certain action is taken in regards to land use, other types of agenda items that are involving specific property, we would like to put out a public notice and put out the sandwich boards on that property so that people will be able to see when items are coming up. So the goal is to have that out at least a week before the agenda item would go forward. We'll try to get that out as soon as we can. If we can do it more than a week out, then we will try to do that just as a standard practice to help people know. Is that what you?
Yep,
were
that's
referring
it.
to?
Yeah.
Do our public notices go on our email list, our city email list?
Not always.
Okay.
No,
I would think they should, but I hadn't noticed a lot of them. That's why I was wondering.
right.
Well, technically that's every meeting, right? Every meeting is a public notice.
Right. We have plenty of public notices that go out.
But those are like our public hearing, like the sandwich
But
board.
whenever we do a public hearing, the sandwich board has always been part of that. We're now adding a layer when even it's not a public hearing, we would like to put out public notice sandwich board. The best example is this short-term rental that you just talked about. We put that sandwich board out to make sure that anybody driving by would know that something was happening on that property. Even if they didn't know what, they could go to the website and find out. So that's the goal, is to make it clear when there's agenda items that is affecting property throughout the city. But there are many other public notices that happen as well. So that's why I say if you want to be aware of all of the public notices in the city, the best way is to sign up through the public notice website and the state website. Because that's the requirement that we have as a city, is to publish it on the state website and then in 3 locations physically throughout the city. But we don't expect everybody to drive by the city hall or the FAC every day to see if a new public notice sign is posted. So
Did we decide to do like a social media blast for that signing up on the state website? Did that?
we had talked about that, and that's still in the plans. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we want to use all of our avenues the best we can. We don't get everything out onto the email, but that's something that we want to do a better job at.
Thank you, Dave. That's it for me.
Quinn?
Just a brief update on the 5-person committee we talked about previously to be on the advisory board for the monies that we're receiving from State Parsons. Those 5 people have been identified. I think we need, per the development agreements, this needs to be appointed by the city council. Does that require a vote here, or is that appointed?
Does that need to be an agenda item? It would.
I would think so.
Can you just put that on our
For
next
next
agenda?
week, we'll just add that to.
We can do that if you'd like. I know that we had talked about the Parks and Rec committee
Right.
would essentially do that. So you could make an argument that the city council appointed the 2 members of the Parks and Rec Committee to be on that. But if you'd like to make it an official agenda item and have that discussion, we absolutely can do that.
I feel like that's appropriate.
Sure. Yep.
Can do that. That's all.
Angie.
Okay, so we met with the Youth City Council committee that has newly been formed, and we have come up with an application for our Youth City Council, and I should have had it out on the website last week, but I did not, so I apologize. It is ready to go, so I will make sure staff has that out. We will leave that application period open till September 8th.
Something like that.
I'm pretty sure it's the 8th. And then we will review them in the city council meeting, the next city council meeting. So we have some really good ideas and we're really excited about that. I had one other thing, I won't write it down because I'll remember it. I guess I don't.
Is it an update on the dog park?
Oh, that's it. Thank you very much.
You walked the dog.
I walked the dog park with the developer and the mayor, Mark Larson, Brandon Jones, Dave was there. So we talked, we staked out a place for the trail and we discussed the dog park. We still don't have a timeline for when that will be completed. I would recommend the council consider that we will have phase 3 coming before us next week for approval. And this dog park was promised June 1st of 2019. So perhaps consider that for our discussion next week.
Did you figure out the outline for the path?
Yes, so we got an outline for the path. There's a little discrepancy whether how many trees we can actually save. But we're doing our best on saving as many trees as we can. There's going to be a lot of deadfall that has to be removed.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wayne?
A follow-up question on the dog park. Before that park opens, we had some discussion a while back about rules and regulations, but I don't know if anything got finalized. Are we going to have something in place prior to the day 1 opening?
Yes. Staff is working on updating the Park Rules City Code right now. That was in works, and now we have somebody who can help us finalize that process.
So it's not going to open until the codes or the policies in place.
We are drafting an updated section of the Parks Code that includes dog park, that includes some other elements of park rules that we've discussed.
You have a plan.
Yes,
Thank you.
And signs will be made.
yes, updating park signs, those types of things.
Okay. Okay, my report.
You gotta talk about that.
Mosquitoes. As you may have heard, Davis County had 3 positive pools tested for West Nile virus, but no active human or animal cases. That's not the case in some of the surrounding states. California's got it pretty significant. Arizona's got a few as well. The issue that they talked about is because of this pandemic, if that's what we want to call it, people who are getting sick are going in and getting tested, and they come back and say, nope, you're not positive, go home and rest. And they're not thinking it could be West Nile virus. So we think the numbers could be much greater than what's actually being reported. So
I was just gonna ask that.
we were trying to put some saddles on them, but you know, the masks are a little bit more difficult. There's no human cases. Yeah, the pools, they put traps out, and in the traps, they test them, and some come back with the virus, so. That's my report.
We don't learn any new names today?
Tarsalis.
See, if I've educated 2 of the council members.
All right. Dave, anything to report?
No.
All right, Lisa.
The only thing I have to report is wishing Angie happy birthday tomorrow.
Happy birthday.
Big 4-0, right?
No, not yet.
5-0.
I'll be 37. I'm proud of it. Thank you.
For the 3rd time?
Michelle. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So
Does
moved.
anybody want, we can run this out for 4 more minutes.
We got to, I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.